What kind of teachers do we want for our schools? Teachers who simply deliver information or teachers who inspire thinking, creativity, and values? The answer to this question defines the vision of teacher education. Hello dear viewers, I am Dr. Asya Mudassir. In the previous video, we concluded structure of teacher education curriculum. In today's video, we will understand that educational system is guided by a vision that determines what kind of teachers it wants to produce. The vision of teacher education therefore defines the goals, values, and competencies expected from teachers. But a vision alone is not enough. For this vision to guide the educational system, it must be clearly reflected in curriculum policies and frameworks. In India, this responsibility is largely carried out by the National Council of Education Research and Training (NCERT). The NCERT plays a crucial role in shaping the vision of teacher education because it develops national curriculum frameworks, textbooks, and pedagogical guidelines for schools and teacher preparation. Therefore, to understand the vision of teacher education in India, we must examine the curriculum documents prepared by NCERT as they reflect the educational policy and goals of the nation. However, the vision of teacher education is not applied in the same way at every stage of schooling. Children's needs, abilities, and learning goals change as they grow. Therefore, the curriculum documents of the National Council of Education Research and Training reflect this vision differently at the elementary, secondary, and higher secondary levels. In other words, while the overall vision of teacher education remains the same, that is, developing competent, reflective, and learner-centered teachers, the way this vision is implemented varies according to the stages of education. Thus, according to NCERT curriculum documents, the vision can be understood across three stages: elementary level, secondary level, and higher secondary level. Therefore, to fully understand the vision of teacher education in NCERT curriculum documents, it is important to examine how this vision is reflected at the elementary, secondary, and higher secondary stages of education. At this elementary level, the focus is on child-centered education and holistic development, and the major objectives include understanding child psychology and development, promoting activity-based learning, developing foundational literacy and numeracy, encouraging curiosity and creativity, creating a joyful learning environment. Let's discuss all of them one by one. So let's discuss the first objective of the elementary level, that is understanding child psychology and development. Teachers must understand how children think, feel, and learn at different ages. Children at the elementary level learn gradually through observation, imitation, play, and interaction. When teachers understand child psychology, they can design lessons according to students' developmental abilities rather than imposing adult expectations. For example, a teacher knows that a 6-year-old child cannot sit silently for a long lecture. Instead of giving a 30-minute explanation, the teacher divides the lesson into short activities, stories, and discussions. Another example, if a child struggles with writing, the teacher first encourages drawing or tracing letters, helping the child develop fine motor skills. Next is promoting activity-based learning. Activity-based learning means students learn by doing rather than only listening. This method keeps students engaged and helps them understand concepts deeply. According to the vision of elementary education, classrooms should include experiments, games, group activities, role plays, and practical tasks. For example, instead of explaining the concept of measurement only from a book, the teacher asks students to measure the length of the desks or books or classroom objects using a ruler, using a scale. Another example, in environmental studies, students may plant seeds and observe plant growth over days. Through such activities, learning becomes practical and meaningful. Next objective is developing foundational literacy and numeracy. At the elementary level, the most important goal is to ensure that every child develops basic reading, writing, and mathematical skills. Foundational literacy means the ability to read, understand, and write simple texts. Foundational numeracy means the ability to recognize numbers, perform basic calculations, and understand simple mathematical ideas. Without these skills, students struggle in the later stages of education. For example, a teacher helping students read simple storybooks aloud improves reading comprehension and vocabulary. For numeracy, teachers may use objects like beads, sticks, or fruits to teach counting and addition. For example, if a child has 3 apples and receives 2 more, the teacher demonstrates the addition, physically using real apples. Next objective is encouraging curiosity and creativity. Children are naturally curious and constantly ask questions. A good elementary teacher encourages questions instead of discouraging them. Curiosity leads to exploration, and creativity allows children to express ideas in different ways. For example, if a student asks, "Why does the moon change shape?" the teacher encourages discussion and exploration instead of saying, "You will learn it later." Teachers may also give drawing, storytelling, or model making activities where children express their imagination. Another example, students may be asked to draw their dream school and explain why they designed it that way. The next objective is creating a joyful learning environment. A joyful learning environment means that children feel happy, safe, and motivated to learn in school. Fear, punishment, and excessive pressure can reduce children's interest in learning. Therefore, teachers should create a friendly and supportive classroom atmosphere. For example, teachers may use songs, storytelling games, and group activities during lessons. Another example, when a child makes a mistake in reading, the teacher encourages and guides the child patiently instead of scolding. This builds confidence and positive attitude towards learning. So in conclusion, we can say these objectives ensure that children develop strong learning foundations for later stages of education. Now let's discuss the vision at secondary level. At this stage, teacher education prepares teachers to promote conceptual understanding, critical thinking, subject specialization, problem-solving skills, collaborative learning. Teachers should help students connect knowledge with real-life situations. So let's discuss each one by one. Conceptual understanding. Conceptual understanding means that students grasp the meaning and principles behind a topic instead of memorizing facts or formulas. When students understand concepts clearly, they can apply knowledge in different situations rather than relying only on memory. For example, in physics, instead of memorizing the formula of speed, the teacher explains the concept through a real-life example. For example, a student travels 60 kilometers in 2 hours. The teacher asks students to calculate the speed and understand that speed means distance divided by time. Similarly, in history, instead of memorizing dates, students discuss why a historical event happened and what were its consequences. The next objective is critical thinking. Critical thinking means the ability to analyze information, evaluate arguments, and form independent opinions. At the secondary level, students should not accept information blindly, they should learn to question, compare, and interpret ideas logically. For example, in social science, instead of simply reading about democracy, students may discuss questions such as, why is democracy considered a better form of government? Through discussions and debates, students learn to think independently and evaluate different perspectives. Next objective is subject specialization. At the secondary stage, subjects become more structured and detailed. Teachers must develop deeper knowledge in their respective subjects so that they can explain complex concepts clearly. This helps students build strong academic foundations for higher studies. For example, a science teacher explains chemical reaction not only theoretically but also through laboratory experiments. A mathematics teacher teaches algebra and geometry in detail, helping students understand how these concepts apply to real life situations like architecture or engineering. Next important objective is problem solving skills. Problem solving skills involve the ability to identify problems, analyze them, and find appropriate solutions using logical reasoning. This skill is important because real life often requires practical decision making and analytical thinking. For example, in mathematics, students may solve problems such as calculating the cost of building a room by finding its area and estimating material required. In environmental studies, students may discuss how to reduce plastic waste in their school or community, suggesting practical solutions. Next important objective is collaborative learning. Collaborative learning means students work together in groups to learn, discuss ideas, and solve problems collectively. This approach develops communication skills, teamwork, and respect for different viewpoints. For example, in a classroom project, students may be divided into groups to research renewable energy sources. Each group member contributes different tasks such as collecting information, preparing charts or presentations, explaining findings to the class. Through collaboration, students learn cooperation and shared responsibility. So in the conclusion, we can say these objectives help students become analytical, independent, and socially responsible learners. Now let's discuss the vision of NCERT in the third level, higher secondary level. At this level, the curriculum aims to develop advanced knowledge and analytical ability, research orientation, independent learning, career awareness, and multidisciplinary thinking. Teachers must guide students towards higher education, careers, and intellectual development. So let's discuss each objective one by one. First is advanced knowledge and analytical ability. At the higher secondary level, students study subjects in greater depth and complexity. The goal is not only to understand concepts but also to analyze ideas, compare theories, and interpret information logically. Analytical ability helps students examine problems from different perspectives and arrive at reasoned conclusions. For example, in economics, students do not only learn definitions of inflation, they analyze why inflation occurs, how it affects society, and how governments try to control it. In physics, students analyze how different variables affect motion on energy or energy rather than simply memorizing formulas. Next objective is research orientation. Research orientation means encouraging students to investigate topics, collect information, analyze data, and present findings. This prepares them for higher education and academic inquiry. Teachers guide students to develop skills such as observation, data collection, analysis, and interpretation. For example, a student studying environmental science may conduct a small research project on air pollution levels in their locality, collect data, and present conclusions. Another example, students may prepare a research-based project on the impact of social media on youth behavior. Next important objective is independent learning. At this stage, students should gradually learn to study and explore knowledge on their own rather than depending completely on teacher. Independent learning helps students develop self-discipline, curiosity, and responsibility for their own education. For example, a teacher assigns students to read articles or books on the topic and then present their understanding in class, discussion, or presentations. Students may also prepare self-study notes, presentations, or digital projects. Next important objective is career awareness. Higher secondary education is an important stage where students begin to think about their future careers and professional paths. Teachers help students understand different fields of study and professions so that they can make informed decisions about higher education and career choices. For example, a student interested in biology learns about careers such as medicine, biotechnology, environmental science, or research. Teachers may also organize career guidance sessions, guest lectures, or counseling programs. Next important objective is multidisciplinary thinking. Multidisciplinary thinking means the ability to connect knowledge from different subjects to understand complex real-world problems. Modern challenges often require knowledge from multiple disciplines. For example, to understand climatic change, students need knowledge from science, environmental processes, geography, climate patterns, economics, industrial impact, and political science, policy decisions. Similarly, studying artificial intelligence may involve mathematics, computer sciences, and ethics. This approach helps students see knowledge as interconnected rather than isolated subjects. So, in conclusion, we can say these objectives prepare students for higher education, professional careers, and responsible participation in society. So in this lecture, we discussed NCERT's vision of teacher education. In the next video, we will understand how NCTE prepares teachers to implement this vision in classrooms. Dear viewers, if you find this video useful, subscribe to this channel for more updates. Thank you.